If you're anything like me, you probably love hunting for mushrooms. The problem is, living in Melbourne means you only get a tiny window to enjoy them before they vanish again. So in this video, we're building a mossy forest floor terrarium, complete with handmade, realistic mushrooms so we can appreciate them all year round. Creating the structure. To start, I'm using an Ecotech terrarium. The exact brand isn't important, but you will need a lid. Moss dries out quickly without proper humidity, and this build is all about keeping things lush. First up, we're creating a retaining wall at the back to separate the foreground from the background. I'm using cork bark and Dura Instant Hold aquascaping glue. Small rolls of toilet paper work surprisingly well as a bonding agent between the glass and the wood. And unless you're an enthusiastic glue sniffer, definitely do this in a well-ventilated room. Across the front, I'm adding some Dura tiger wood to mimic fallen branches or exposed tree roots. To hide any obvious toilet paper crimes, sprinkle powdered aquarium soil over the top. It blends everything together nicely. I'm aiming for a gentle half-moon shape from one back corner to the other. The problem is, if I add soil now, it'll fall straight through to the front. Terrarium putty, the solution? You need to make some turds. Terrarium putty is made from 1 part kitty litter. Make sure it has 100% bentonite clay, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part soil or substrate. Add water and mix until it looks like literal crap. It's not glamorous, but it's incredible for building walls and sealing gaps. Substrate, at the bottom, add a layer of rocks to act as drainage. This keeps excess water away from the soil and prevents root rot in stagnant conditions. For the soil, this might sound counterintuitive, but you don't want it loaded with nutrients. Otherwise, your plants will grow too fast and too big. We want compact, controlled growth, more forest floor, less jungle. Basically, we're starving them. Lovingly. I'm using a recycled mix from our store, Nature Pets and Aquariums. It's a blend of old aquarium soils, sand, peat moss, and reptile bedding, which always contains some mysterious little surprises. Add it to the skin collection. Planting where you find mushrooms, you'll find moss. I'm using a mix of star moss, sphagnum moss, and Physidens moss. Moss is great for hiding dodgy glue spots, but placement matters. Always place it on top of wood, stone, or soil, never underneath, or it'll look unnatural and struggle to get light. For a classic forest floor look, stick to mosses and ferns. Too many plant species, and suddenly you've built a jungle. We're going for woodland vibes here. This chicken and hen fern from New Zealand produces tiny plantlets on its fronds that you can pluck off and replant elsewhere. Free plants, baby. I've also added a maidenhair fern, which is common throughout Australian forests, and a rabbitfoot fern. Collecting small sticks and fine roots adds extra detail, softening the hardscape and helping everything blend together naturally. Making the mushrooms now for the fun part, making mushrooms. I'm using Sculpey polymer clay. Start by rolling thin sausages for the stems and shaping them into gentle curves on a baking tray. The caps need to be made separately. This part is important. For small caps, roll a clay ball and press the end of a pencil into the center. Shape a slight point on top and add grooves if you want extra detail. For larger caps, repeat the process with more clay, then pinch and flare the edges to thin the rim. Flip the caps upside down, carve in the gills, and create a hole for the stem. Bake the stems and caps at 130 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. Polymer clay stems aren't strong enough to hold caps before curing. If you try to bake them as one piece, the stem will flatten and your mushroom will come out looking emotionally unstable. Once cooled, super glue the caps onto the stems. For clusters, I partially bake the individual stems for 15 minutes so they're rigid. Then I join them together with fresh clay and bake again for another 15 minutes. This locks in the angles and prevents shifting. Working from photo references helps keep everything looking realistic. These small clustered mushrooms are inspired by the tiny machina mushrooms you often find growing together. This one's based on gallerina mushrooms and definitely not any other golden cap mushroom. Not at all. And these two are in homage to LBMs, little brown mushrooms, all looking the same and keeping mushroom enthusiasts humble. Because this terrarium needs to stay moist, make sure you're using acrylic paint, not water-based paint. Otherwise, you'll be telling people you were going for a porcelain fungus aesthetic. In hindsight, attaching the mushrooms after finishing the hardscape would have been easier. For the gallerinas, I used extra terrarium putty, plus super glue for security. The machinas just slotted straight into the soil and honestly came out adorable. Final look and care tips. I'll admit it, putting fake mushrooms in a terrarium felt almost as wrong as putting fake plants in an aquarium. That hurt my soul a little. But as long as they're realistic, I think we can get away with it. You can also use these mushrooms in pot plants or out in the garden. They're not the same as the real thing, but they're permanent and a great mood lifter in the middle of scorching summers. For care, this terrarium needs a good LED light and a light mist every couple of days so it doesn't dry out. It'll also be for sale in-store if you're interested, and you can find all the equipment I used linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this build, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks so much for watching.